Welcome to my Commodore 64 Games memories. This is where I look at old games and some of the technical details behind them. Let's get into it. Today we have Salamander, published by Imagine Konami in 1988, developed by Peter Barron and Bob Stevenson, and the musician was Mark Cooksey. This is, of course, an arcade conversion, but this is a really good arcade conversion for the time when this was published. It pushes the Commodore 64 quite well, I think. It certainly uses quite a lot of good graphics, and the conversion actually pretty much faithfully reproduces the arcade game. I remember being very happy with this conversion back in the day when I was much younger and playing this. I'm going to be looking at the original PAL disc version today. I think back in the day I had this back on tape. So it's quite a nice little title screen. The artwork is really nice. There's no music. It's a bitmap, pretty much obviously, with the bottom part of the screen as text, and then of course the high score table doesn't appear in the bitmap. I think the high score table is going to be a text screen. There's what looks like the high score table there, and there it is, just a normal character set by the looks of it. And there's the other character set for the press fire to play down at the bottom of the screen. There's a little disk command up there at the beginning of memory, a disk user command. It's probably trying to read that track and sector to see if it contains correct data or expected data, or an error perhaps. Not too interested in that. This disk loader looks quite nice and speedy, doesn't it? Let's have a quick look at that, see what it is. This is the disk loader between the title screen and the first level. Just setting up my debugger windows there with computer code on the left and drive code on the right. Let's put a breakpoint there, as it looks like that's the start of the transfer loop on the drive code side. There we are. Okay, so the drive code is storing something into its serial port. The Commodore 64 also needs to be doing something at this point. Let's see if we can actually find the receiving code on the Commodore 64 side. Well, there's a bit and a BPL branch on plus, back again, and then there's the reception code there by the looks of it. Let's put a breakpoint at the beginning of those. Load A with DD00, and then the shifts rotate. Looks like it's rotating into A4, 2 bits at a time, as the Commodore 64 receives the information over the serial port. Don't forget that DD00 is the serial port. So this is why the load looks so speedy, because it is. It's actually a pretty well optimized 2-bit transfer protocol from the drive to the Commodore 64, which is always nice to see. I did another video where I was doing a deep dive into a protection scheme, but more than that, the 2-bit drive transfer protocol, and actually found quite a lot of very similar variations of that drive code, and I actually managed to find the original author for that and actually have a quick chat with them. So that was a very interesting video. I'll link that one down below. If you're interested in technical deep dives into disk turbo loaders, then that is probably the video for you. Anyway, so yes, we can see that the Commodore 64 receiving code is being synchronized, is basically in synchronization with the drive code. Even so, it does take quite a while to load all of the data for level 1. So level 1, I can immediately see, has some double buffered screens at C000 and C400. We can see a couple of character sets being used. So even though the screens are identical here in the graphics map views, it's showing two different character sets. I don't think there's a third character set. Maybe there is. Oh yeah, there is. And there's just about enough space for a third character set actually. So three character sets, sorry, C800, D000 and D800. However, the third character set is not currently visible. It's interesting to note that the first two windows up in the top right hand, because they're using the same screen memory but looking at different character sets, we can see that the character set for the top of the screen is different to the character set at the bottom of the screen. The growth which comes down from the top of the screen, where the tentacle is coming from, is only visible in the top half. It's not visible in the second screen there, and that's because it's using a different character set. So it looks like the game is flipping between character sets to actually get the correct thing rendered, so the blobs are only in one character set. I think that's so the game can have more character set variation for the top and bottom of the screen perhaps. Or maybe it's just not filled in at this stage. This level is actually quite long. So now you'll notice that the blue background with little balls starts to come in. We can see that the third character set is now being used for this. I don't think there's a character set after that, but we can put this one down here because I'm pretty sure that one of the later levels actually does use 4 character sets, just not this one. So let's set up the windows so that they're all visible. There we go. Notice that the score is actually being displayed with sprites up in the top left hand corner of the screen, which is nice to see. It also allows the full screen real estate to be used for the game level, which in this type of game you could probably make do with very, very narrow horizontal split, so you wouldn't need to waste more than one character line for the score, but it just looks nicer to use the sprites for the score display. And here we go. This is very interesting again. So the character set for the top screen is showing the what are they? Claws or teeth, or whatever they are. Claws, I think. But the second character set, although it has the organic looking pink blobby stuff, it doesn't have the claws or the teeth in it. So yeah, I think the middle character set at D000 is used for something else. And we have those claws coming in. I didn't notice any dynamic character copying going on at the moment, but we can see that the character sets have the bullets and the missiles all duplicated across the character sets, which kind of makes sense, right? If you're swapping the character sets as the game renders the screen or as different parts of the level come on, then you want the bullets to be consistent. This game is quite unusual that we've got 3 multiples, all as sprites trailing the player. That's quite a significant number of sprites being used for the playership, if you like. Especially since the Commodore 64 is limited to 8 sprites in a horizontal band, so you're using quite a lot of your sprite budget for these visible multiples on the screen. Now the multiples were a very important part of the game. Now keep an eye on the character set data there. There we are. One of those, as you can see, the middle character set at D000 is actually using dynamic characters this time to render the characters for the tentacle arm. The main part of the brain, if you like, which is a brain, is actually comprised of sprite sheets. But there is a colour split going on as well. I can see a colour split there. Just below the pink blobby stuff up at the top of the screen, we can see that the multicolours have started going grey, but the stars, the background has gone all black. And this is because the dynamic characters are being used for the tentacle, but not for the end of the tentacle. The end of the tentacle is still characters, but watch here. We can see that when the game is unpaused, we can see those characters being updated dynamically, so keep an eye on that. The character set is actually very comprehensively updated. Actually, there's quite a lot of updates going on in that character set, so no wonder the frame rate actually reduces in this part of the game. And actually the multiples are alternated as well. They're flickering across multiple frames to reduce the horizontal sprites in the band, of course. So here we go, you can see those multiples are now flickering. But yeah, those. So yes, that middle character set at D000 has a lot of dynamic updates going on there. Now we can see that the character set for the top and bottom is actually using the character set at C800, so the pink blobby stuff. Oh, I've noticed as well in this version of the game, look, I'm using a cheated version, so the game seems to freeze the boss. It didn't actually animate an update when I moved my player ship into the pink blobby stuff at the top of the screen. I'm wondering if that's because it realised the player was cheating, or it's just a bug due to the player being damaged so much that the game got a bit confused about what to do. Anyway, so let's have a quick little look at this. We can see a lot of characters being used in the character set there, but we've just got a basic black starfield scrolling level at the moment. The score is actually made up of characters this time rather than sprites. For this vertical scrolling section, there's only a single screen at the moment that I can see being active at C000, because that's just a starfield. So let's progress on through the level. There's quite an impressive number of sprites going on in the game, and an impressive number of bullet character effects, and of course missiles are character based as well. The music's great in this game as well. For the time that it was produced, it actually sounds quite a lot like the arcade. There we go, my laser weapon, which is really cool. Does quite a lot of damage. I'm not shooting deliberately, so you can see how many sprites can get on the screen from the enemies. There was a bit of slowdown and flickering there though, even though I wasn't really shooting. Now this sprite, of course, this is interesting, that's where all of those characters are being used in the character set, is actually for the rotating spikes. This enemy, and if I pause the game, this is not emulation pause, this is me pressing P on the keyboard. The character-based animation still keeps ticking around, but of course the rest of the game is paused apart from the music. That's a bit of a that's just a bug, isn't it? Quite obviously. The player character multiples as well. Although I meant to have 3, there's only 2 visible on the screen there, and that's because they were flickering again when the boss comes on. Interesting to note that the characters for the score disappear when the boss comes on the screen, and that's because we've got these characters rotating around the sprite grid. Just adding some debugging notes, which of course will get committed into the source control GitHub repository, so you can read what I'm typing about. If I use the emulation frame advanced, then you can see how the multiples are flickering there between, or at least alternating. We can see how often the main sprite grid for the boss is updated compared to the character-based animation. It's also interesting to note here, look, you can see that the screen at C400, which isn't rendered, actually contains partially overdrawn spikes. So the routine that draws the spikes seems to overdraw the screen borders. Certainly underneath, to the screen underneath, which is the screen lower in memory. Let's just double check. Well, the character set's wrong. Let's change. Need to change the character set. There we go. So the character set, and we can see that the screen. Let's put that back to how it was, and then let's add another window so we can see it a lot easier. So we can see if I change the character set to be more visible. There we go. And that's the screen in memory terms before, and that's the screen after. So there's actually quite a lot of overdraw above and below outside of the screen boundaries for the rotating character-based spikes. It's probably quicker to write the routine like that than it is to try and get it to properly clip to the screen boundaries to prevent drawing over the memory. But that's an interesting optimization that was used for this part of the game. But the characters for those rotating spikes are certainly they certainly use quite a lot of character frames. And then of course there's the character frames as well for the weapons and things like that too. The ripple lasers, which actually I don't think I've actually found in this game. Now look at this level here, the third level. Back to horizontally scrolling, back to using sprites. Now this level, look, is using 4 character sets. That's huge. So using 4 character sets of course means that fewer sprites are available, which we can see there. There's quite a number of fewer sprites compared to the previous level, which didn't have much character set data but had many more sprites. So we can see here actually that the same 2 screens worth of data are actually mapped to the 4 different character sets in such a way that 2 character sets contain valid graphic data for the top of the screen, and then the other 2 character sets contain graphics data for the bottom part of the screen. That really is interesting. Now it's not surprising because this animated fiery surface, I think it's meant to be the surface of the sun, right? If you remember the arcade game or the Commodore 64 version of this game, it has very large, very nice animations for large eruptions of flame and plasma, coronal mass ejections, right? CMEs. I mean, of course, to be honest, they're not full CMEs because they are structurally huge and the player's spaceship is not that big. But you know, the sense of scale in this game is not entirely accurate, of course. Or they're just regular flame spurts rather than magnetic based plasma spurts of coronal mass ejections. But anyway, so there we go. There's one very large flame spurt, CME, whatever you want to call them. I mean, maybe the player's ship is actually incredibly huge compared to the surface of the sun, or whatever this is meant to be. Anyway, you can see here is that if I pause it in the emulator, you can see that the top character set is displaying the correct data, and the last character set, or the last two character sets, are displaying the correct data for the top of the screen. However, watch what happens to the flame animations as I single step this in the emulator. So the character set at C800 is currently valid for this frame, but it's invalid in the D000 character set, the second character set there. If I then step it, you can see that the next frame of the flamey thing is much bigger, and then we get the curved over effect, which is bigger again. So that's what, 1, 2, 3 frames at least. The fourth frame, or maybe the fifth frame as it comes along, though, look, it's suddenly valid in the second character set at D000, look. And then the frame after that, which you can see on the double buffered screens, is also valid. So it's using 2 character sets worth of animation data for the lower half of the level, and then the lower half of the screen for the level draw. That's what I meant. And then the upper half of the screen, we're going to find again that we're using 2 character sets worth of animation data for the flame spurt CME up at the top of the level. So that's why 4 character sets are used, is because basically this version has tried to faithfully reproduce as much as possible the very large, complicated animated graphics that were visible in the arcade, because the arcade was visually very striking for this animated background effect. So it was, in my opinion, it's worth all of the effort and time and memory to basically try and squeeze this in as much as possible, because it made the C64 version look great, and it does look great, right? The surface flames, they do seem to share most of the characters though, right? It seems to be mostly identical. We can see that as the double buffered screens scroll along as well, they get updated in vertical chunks of about 4, maybe 6 or 8 characters wide. That looks like 8 characters, doesn't it? I'm not going to measure it precisely, but we can see that the screens are updated in those rolling vertical column chunks, frame by frame, which again is expected and sensible because the screen is scrolling at a pixel level. It's not scrolling at a full character level for every frame, right? So it can afford to update the screen in vertical columns of characters because it's using double buffering as well. It smooths out CPU time for doing all of this scrolling and updating across multiple frames, which helps to balance out the frame time. But yeah, that's really quite fantastic. The amount of character set and animation data that's being used for these flamey spurting things is fantastic, isn't it? Now, the large boss thing is going to come along soon, right? So try to remember what the sprites currently look like in the sprite view, sprite graphics debug view there. And there we go, the frames for this large dragon snaky boss thing got copied in for the head mostly, I think. The head seems to point in different directions because it swirls around, the screen swirls around the player, right? So we can see that it's using what looks like about 12, maybe 13 expanded sprites for the segments, but then the player pickups multiples of flickering around the player, of course, to reduce the strain on the sprite. 8 sprites per horizontal band limit that we have, because the boss is actually using quite a lot of sprites, but they're expanded too, which complicates matters for the multiplexer as well. The head sprites got copied in to replace the sprites animation frames that we use for the enemies during the rest of the level. So it's using dynamic sprites here, as well as 4 character sets. To be honest, if you have a look at the sprite data there, there's those vertical lines in the sprite and graphic and character set graphics data. We can see that it's actually got quite a few frames available, right? So maybe a little bit less copying was needed, or maybe there was just like a budget for sprite data, or maybe there isn't quite enough space for the head to be in there at the same time. But anyway, you know, it doesn't really matter. There was quite a lot of copying going on, but it was between levels. So this level here is very much like the arcade 2. It's a little bit more compressed than the arcade. Not all of the stuff in the arcade has been squeezed into the Commodore 64 version, but it's a very faithful reproduction all the same. This level does suffer quite a bit from quite a little slowdown, but then again it does actually have quite a lot of enemies coming in. But we can see this level is a lot different to the previous level. It only uses what looks like 1 character set's worth of data, but it's using an awful lot more sprites. Again, we have the sprite-based score in the top left-hand corner, but we have a lot of sprite frames there. But I didn't notice any other kind of like dynamic sprite copying going on. So far, all of the sprites seem to be in the graphics memory. Now, the object of this last part of the level is that you're meant to shoot the great big round bomb thing, that the struts around the bomb. You're meant to shoot those so that it falls away, so that it cannot be used to destroy the Earth or whatever it is, or the planet, your home planet. So you have to remember to do that. If you don't remember to do that, then you don't get the correct game over screen coming up. You don't get congratulated, you just get game over. And I think the story behind this game is that because you didn't destroy the bomb by making it fall down, then the bomb gets used, and therefore you have effectively lost the game rather than completed or won the game. But we can see here, wow, there's quite a lot of bullets. The patterns of the bullets, that as they get ejected from those turrets or whatever they are, is quite nice. This was also in the arcade, these large Easter Island jumping, bouncing head things that shoot these weird multicolored hoop things, right? Flashing colour hoop things. I don't know, just go with it. So here's the big bomb that you're meant to shoot the bits around inside. There we go, there's the last one. It falls away, and there you go. Then you get into the last part of this level, where you're meant to, now I'm cheating, of course, where you're meant to fly your way through these very narrow gaps. And this part of the game, to me, always seemed to be a bit unfair. The scroll has sped up as well, and there we go. The player ship doesn't need any of the multiples, and there you go. There's the correct game winning message where you are congratulated for defeating the Salamander, and you've got these multiplex sprites for the fireworks, the explosions, whatever they are, right? And it's just a normal character-based screen by the looks of it, and multiplex sprites. So there we go. That's basically all of the technical points in Salamander that I really wanted to cover. Oh yeah, there's the high score entry. If you like these kind of technical deep dives into Commodore 64 games, then please do consider liking or subscribing to this channel, and I hope to see you around next time. Take care, have a great day or evening or night, wherever you are.